Hey, Joseph here with American Trade Masters. We just finished up an install. It's kind of a complicated install, so I thought it was worth shooting a video of. This is what you see here it's a compound angle peninsula that comes off the wall with no back. We basically had to build the back, so wanted to give you an overview, and then we're going to go into some technical details about how I did the install. So we'll just go ahead and show you a little scan here. So it starts right there. It's basically the same layout as it was before. We did widen it up a little bit and add some, we added some islands to it. So let's just take this off of here now, and we'll go zooming in to show you some of the details. This has a very nice, countertops are to come. They're going to be granite. It's going to have an overhang. It's like a bar area back there. And we actually put these two cabinets together. These are all component cabinets that had to be assembled together. We put skins on the sides there. So in an earlier video, I showed how to assemble this refrigerator shroud. I like to rather than putting it together one piece at a time, I like to build that as a unit. It comes out a lot nicer and straighter. And then I did the same thing with this. These are two end panels here that had to be assembled together, and I assembled them and just made it into like a cabinet. It's very much easier to install that way. And I wanted to go into some details on how I laid this out. You can see these blue tape lines that I have out on the floor. A lot of times when you're doing these jobs, there is no flooring in there, so you have to do all the math to get them to come out right. And so I'm going to show you step by step how I did that, how to build a compound angle peninsula without a support wall behind it. It will have like a 9-inch overhang hanging over that. And so let's start with the layout. So here's your 5 easy steps of building a compound angle peninsula. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to do your layout with your lines from point to point. Then you're going to pre-cut and install your spacers, attach the cabinets together, and then use a straight edge to determine the back spacing, and we're going to fasten the cabinets together. So on the layout, you can see down here, still I left the tape on here that I had snapped some lines over that tape because it just makes it easier to see. What I did to make the angles come out correctly is called a 3-4-5 triangle, right triangle layout. So basically this is the wall right here, and then I snapped my lines out 24 inches, which is these blue dots and dashes, they represent the cabinets. So I came out 24 inches, I snapped a line, and then I did a 3-4-5 triangle calculation to make sure I was 90 degrees in this corner on this line right here. So I got this line correct. Then I calculated this cabinet. This cabinet was a drawer base 12. So it needs spacers on each side, like right here. You can see that there's spacers here so that the drawers can operate correctly. These come in 3-inch, usually in 3-inch widths, and you have to cut them to the correct sizes. So what I did was I added those fillers, and I came up with 15-inch. It was 1.25 inch clearance on each side. Once I had that dimension, then I just positioned it right here, point to point. And that's how I got that squared. And then you come over here, and what I did over here to make this correct and true was I did this little angle template. I just cut this on the miter saw, and I put it on my straight line, and I snapped the line. That doesn't have to be perfect because these are going to be templated countertops going on here, so I really wasn't worried about that. So I wanted to go into how I cut these fillers. Basically, they come full like this, and you have to rip them down on the table saw. Once they're ripped down with an angle on them, the way I attach them to the cabinet is I make these blocks. These little blocks help you to clamp it without damaging the edge. So basically, you just install that clamp on there with these. They just go right on to here like this. Whoops, had it upside down. They just slip on right here, and you just clamp it on. I always put some screws in there also to make it stronger. So you pre-install all these fillers. That's step 2, is we're pre-cutting and installing our spacers. The way I do it is I do a square side and then a 45 side. The reason I do it that way is because I can install this cabinet and start it, and then I can butt this cabinet up to this one, and then I follow along with a square side and a 45. So I'm basically installing 1, 2, and 3, and then I start. And there's a farm sink. I had to install a farm sink, and then the same thing over here. I did a 45 here. Remember, I built this into a cabinet with these temporary stickers on the front, top and bottom, and on the back as well. You can see that I cleated them on there. Once I had that built, then I just snuggled it up right to here. So once you have your fillers cut and installed, and then you stage your cabinets in the area, and then you just pin them very lightly with a really small pin nail according to your lines, your space available lines that you've snapped onto the floor here. So once you got the fronts of the cabinets tied together, then you lay it out, make sure it's exact. And to get, what I use is a temporary block with hot glue, and you can see down there that I glue in these hot glue blocks, and that holds everything still. I will use blocks with adhesive on them later on to attach it to the floor, but that's the way I do it temporarily. That way everything is going to stay right where I want it, and then I go on to the next step, which is going to be to use a straight edge to draw lines first. You have to draw lines because remember, this part of the wall is not on there. It's just this angle cavity. So you have to determine these points, these spaces available right here. These have to be predetermined. We do that with a straight edge and a line on the floor to have an intersecting line at this. What I like to do when I'm not building a support wall is I'll use 1/2-inch wafer board for my substrate. Once I snap my lines, that gives me my point-to-point measurements from here to here to determine how long these walls have to be. Okay? Once your substrate is on, then you can put your skin. There usually comes with a 1/4-inch panel that you can add later. Then you can put that panel on there, and then you can trim out your corners. This company has very nice 22.5 degree corners. If you don't have that, you're going to have to miter your trim like I did right here. That I mitered that into a 45. So that's how you set a compound angled peninsula. And I think that is about it for today. This is the grand tour. We might do some pictures later on with the countertops on. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching.